Hello and welcome back to Business and Technical Writing. This is Professor Plyman, and today we're going to be talking about writing proposals. So proposals are something that you're going to see pop up a lot in both the business world, in nonprofit sectors, in education and academia, really in lots of different types of organizations. And there are some different categories or classifications of proposals that I want you to be aware of. The first sort of category is either internal or external. An internal proposal is where one person or element of an organization is proposing a specific change for that organization. So for example, if Human Resources says, this is what I would like to propose for the next fiscal year, but these changes are really only impacting people within the organization. An external proposal is where one company or organization proposes to another company or organization to hire them for a project or to join with them for some joint service action or something like that. So internal is within your own company or organization. External is when one company goes to another. Then you have solicited proposals. This is where somebody calls you and says, hey, I would like a proposal on what it would look like to revamp our entire office building, or to come in and diversify our savings, and then your company is going to create that proposal because they have asked you to. An unsolicited proposal is where somebody creates a proposal for a company and goes in without them specifically asking for it, and it's like, hey, this is how I think we could save you money, or we could improve your organization. So when you sit down to actually write a proposal, there are some steps that I want you to think about or to focus on. The first thing that you really need to think about is your reader's knowledge about your proposal and their attitude about your proposal. Are they going to look at this like you're doing them a huge favor? Are they going to look at this like maybe this isn't a wise investment on their part? What is it that you think they're going to think about what you're coming at them with? And then if it's a very large proposal, you might consider collaborating. Is this something that a couple of people in your organization can work on together? Or maybe sometimes a couple of different organizations might come together to create a proposal. If you're given a request for a proposal or an information for bid, please follow any instructions included in that document. This means that if this is a solicited proposal from an organization and they have asked for particular information, then you are going to make sure that you give them that particular information. Otherwise, you can just follow the general structure outlined in the chapter that I have for you in our online classroom or the information in this lecture video. And then because external proposals usually have pretty firm deadlines, make sure that you are building in extra time that you will need to revise, to edit, to proofread, to go back to the table if something doesn't work. I think a good rule of life is expect the unexpected. Something is going to go awry. So make sure you're budgeting in extra time to take care of those potential things. So let's talk about solicited and unsolicited proposals and how they respond to different needs. So solicited proposals are sent in response to an information for bid or a request for quotation or a request for proposal. This is where somebody asks you to generate a proposal for them. Usually there is very specific criteria and outlines that they are looking for. They want to know particular things, so make sure you are answering all of their questions. Unsolicited proposals are usually submitted by a supplier who believes that the prospective customer service or prospective customer needs their goods or services. Think about it this way. You've decided to get solar panels on your house. So you're going to call a solar panel company and ask for information. That is a solicited proposal. But maybe you've just kind of been thinking about it, but you haven't actually decided if you're going to do it or not. But then somebody knocks on your door and is like, hey, let me tell you about my solar panel company and what we can do for you. That is an unsolicited proposal. But then obviously these are happening in the business world, not just to individual customers. So you need to show 3 things in order to create a successful and persuasive proposal. You need to show that you understand the context and that you understand your reader's needs. You know what they want and what they're looking for. You need to show that you have a plan and that you are able to carry out this plan. Sometimes in academic writing, we create proposals and they're the kind of situation where it's like, if the stars were to align and everything were to go right, this is how I think we would solve this problem or meet this need. That is very different than a business proposal, because in a business proposal, you have to know exactly what you're going to do and you have to know ahead of time that it is going to work. And then the last thing that you must prove is that you are a professional and that you are committed to fulfilling your promises, that you can guarantee your work. So let's talk about writing proposals for intercultural audiences or multicultural audiences. So one of the things that you want to be aware of is what makes an argument persuasive can differ from one culture to another. You know, in a lot of cultures, money talks, but in other cultures, it's more about relationships and integrity. So really understanding the culture that you are writing for is very important. Another thing that you want to be aware of is that translation takes a lot of time. If you have any experience with any foreign language, you probably will know that Google Translate is not really going to be able to do the job for you. You are going to need a native speaker of whatever language you're translating it into to make sure that everything is right. And this does take time, so make sure that you're budgeting enough time for that. Use simple graphics with captions. Write short sentences using common vocabulary, things that you would think of as like standard English versus words that are going to be more common to certain dialects. Follow local conventions regarding things like punctuation, spelling, and mechanics, and ask if the prospective customer will do a read-through, or if not the prospective customer, somebody in that target audience. So here's how you can really work to demonstrate your professionalism in your proposal. You can describe your credentials and work history. There is nothing more convincing for I know this can work than I have done it before, and I have done it before successfully. So if you have those credentials and work history, share that. Provide your work schedule. When are you going to be working on it? What is the time frame? When is a good time to contact you during the week? When maybe, are you not going to be available? That sort of information. Describe your quality control measures. How are you going to make sure this works? How are you going to make sure that the work is done right? What are you going to do to make sure that everything is up to your customer's satisfaction? And include your budget. What is this going to cost, including all of the different aspects and elements of a proposal. Now, here's some common pitfalls that people fall into that I'm going to recommend that you spend a couple of minutes with thinking about, especially if you're ever in a situation where you have to write a proposal, just so that you can make sure you avoid these. One of the ethical proposal pitfalls that we see a lot is people saying that certain qualified people will participate in the project even though they will not. So for example, Sometimes, you'll see something like an in-house legal team. Well, if the legal team is not going to be associated with this project, they shouldn't be mentioned in the proposal. Sometimes you see proposals that say that a project will be finished by a certain date, even though the writers of the proposal knows that it's highly unlikely. Anytime you're building something, it always takes longer than you expect it to. But a lot of times people go with a company that promises that they can get it done the fastest. If you're just promising that you can get it done faster, but you can't actually do that, please do not say that. Saying that the project will have certain characteristics or what you deliver will be of a certain quality, even though that it will not be that. And then it's never okay to say that a project will be completed under budget if you know that it won't. So the problem with all of these things is not that unforeseen circumstances arise. The problem with all of these potential pitfalls is that the client was misled intentionally. So let's talk about why you want to write honest proposals. First of all, you don't want to get sued. So you write honest proposals to avoid serious legal trouble stemming from breach of contract. If you say, I can finish this project in 6 weeks and sign a contract that says that, knowing full well that it's going to take 8 weeks, you might potentially open yourself up for legal trouble. You also don't want to acquire a bad reputation, which obviously can ruin or damage your business. And then the last reason up here, and probably the most important reason, is you want to write an honest proposal because it is the right thing to do. So now a typical proposal is going to include these sections. There's going to be a summary, an introduction, a proposed program, qualifications and experience, and a budget. And then sometimes in some proposals you might also include these sections, an appendix, a task schedule, and sometimes a description of evaluation techniques. So there's some important questions that you want to assess when you set out to create a proposal. So the first one is, what is the problem or the opportunity that you are trying to address? What is the purpose of the proposal? Are you trying to get somebody to hire your company? Are you trying to get your company to make a specific change? What is it that you want your proposal to accomplish? What's the background of the problem or the opportunity? Is this a new problem that is just arisen and nobody really knows how to solve it? Or is this something that multiple people have tried to tackle and been unsuccessful with, and now you think you have the answer? What's the background here? Think about what are your sources of information and what is the scope of this proposal. You want to consider what is the organization of the proposal. So for example, who are you working with? Who are you working for? Who is going to be accepting this proposal? What type of organization do they have? So you want to think about your organization as well as the organization that you're reaching out to. And then the last thing that you really want to be aware of is what are the key terms that you will use in the proposal. A lot of times, especially in English, because we have so many synonyms, words are kind of thrown around. Somebody may mean house, but they say home, and that word may have a different meaning. So it's very important to use very specific and precise language and the same terms throughout the entire proposal so that everybody interacting with it will be on the same page. Now, when you start to create a proposed program, you are going to gather and analyze data. You have to prove that it will work before you even set out to start the project. So think about, how does the professional literature justify your proposed course of action? Most of the things that you're going to see in a proposal are not brand new concepts or ideas. They've been done somewhere previously. Did they work or did they not work? And how do you know that yours is going to work? You have to use research to prove it. Think about what preliminary research you've already done. What do you know about it? What are you bringing into this proposal? And why is the project likely to succeed? All of these are things that you need to convince your potential client of. You also need information in the qualification and experience section. What technical credentials do you and your coworkers possess? Who's going to be working on this project and why are they qualified to do so? And if you don't have all of the qualified coworkers or staff that you need, are you going to be hiring them? What are you going to be looking for? How are you going to make sure that the people on this project are qualified? What other similar projects has your organization completed successfully? What equipment and facilities does your company have? And how will your company's management structure ensure that the project will go smoothly? Who is overseeing it? Who's watching this to make sure everything works? And then this is an example of what a task schedule might look like. I know in a previous slide I mentioned, you might include a task schedule. This just lets your potential client know approximately when things are going to start and end. If you give a task schedule, it's a good idea to stay on task as much as within your control. Here's an example of a task schedule as a bar chart, and it kind of shows when the different tasks are going to take place, and you can kind of see that there is some overlap here. This task schedule is broken up into 5 weeks, and there's some activities that are going to be mostly week 1, and some activities are going to be week 1 and week 2. So this gives you a pretty good idea of when things are going to take place. Here's an example of a task schedule done as a network diagram. This one provides more useful information than the table or the bar chart. We can kind of see what this is going to look like and approximately how many days this is going to take. So for example, you can see in the section 5 of the task schedule that it's going to take about 6 days to hire workers and about 7 days to train those workers. So this gives the potential client a pretty good idea of when certain elements of a project or proposal are going to take place. And then something that you might want to include in your proposal is evaluating your completed work. What type of evaluations are you going to be completing? Quantitative evaluations have to do with numbers. I said it was going to take 37 days, and it took 37 days. How are we going to evaluate that? Qualitative evaluations are going to have to do with the quality of something. How good is the work that you've actually done? And the last one up there is about sort of overall, bringing it all together, a summary of the evaluations. Overall, how did the project turn out? If you have any questions about proposals, make sure you reach out. I am always happy to help.